Hey everybody, welcome back to another film of the week. Hope you guys been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. And for this film of the week, Uh, I was planning to do something a little more specific. I had plans to review a Tatarsky film, but I got caught up with hanging out with my brother that I'm just gonna scrap that for now. Maybe we might do that next week. Maybe I don't know, um, But I figured to do this film because I was going to talk about it anyway, um, but also just to gear us up for the upcoming Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I'm very skeptical about. I figured to revisit the trilogy of films that came before this and to discuss just the whole series as a whole, with just how it's evolved over time and how we are now getting to the latest that is about to come out soon. So I won't have them all come out at once. I might just spread these out until we get closer to the release of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Um, but to start off, we are going to begin with 2011 with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which was directed by Rupert Wyatt, starring James Franco, John Lithgow, Brian Cox, Tom Felton, and David Oyelowo. David Oyelowo, yeah, sorry, I probably butchered the hell out of his last name. I'm sorry. But more notably, stars Andy Serkis as Caesar, who is a chimpanzee who is genetically enhanced and was given like a drug that ultimately gives him the power of intelligence. So his intelligence is spiked um, tremendously to where he is able to do things and at some point say things, and um, and he becomes a bit dangerous for human society. For just what he is as a chimpanzee, a wild animal. He is eventually provoked at one point, and that leads him to captivity with other ape chimpanzees, and him ultimately getting acquainted with his kind and understanding his kind, the kind of mistreatment that they receive, and ultimately what spawns from that is that of an uprising, and um, a rebellion, it seems, for the ape culture. And on the side of we have James Franco and his family, with John Lithgow, his father, facing Alzheimer's, and with this drug that was eventually given to Caesar, he is trying to help cure him or somehow temper his Alzheimer's. And what comes from that is perhaps the start of the downfall of humanity as we know it. Um, so this being a reboot of the series, because before this we had the original series of films, and then we had the Tim Burton film, which I'm not familiar with the Tim Burton film. I've not heard many good things about the Tim Burton film, but I have seen the original films, and they range from okay to pretty forgettable. Not a big lover of the original film. I know some people hail it as like one of the best twists of all time. Perhaps if I didn't have any awareness to Planet of the Apes, maybe it might have hit me on a different level. But with knowledge of that twist, it has some political intrigue, but not much more narratively speaking. Not really much notable characters. Um, but in this, though, I think that what you compare to that original series, what you have here, is a little more sense of depth and a little more sense of weight involved. And a lot of that has to come, surprisingly enough, by its aesthetics, by its visual work, specifically on Caesar, which is just quite fascinating to look at because um, the great thing about all these films that everyone will echo about the Planet of the Apes series is that the visuals are just absolutely stunning, and this is no exception to that. The detail on Caesar with the expressions, with just the fur, the way that the character moves through each frame, and what Andy Serkis is providing in performance by his posture, by his overall by physicality. It's just a remarkable presentation of character, and you're just completely involved with this character for a large portion of the film that is nonverbal. For a lot of this time, this character is not able to speak until eventually there comes a point where that character evolves to speaking. Um, but but a lot of what I believe it's Weta Digital, just to be sure, who provided the VFX. I believe it's Weta Digital. Um, their work and what Andy Serkis is doing was a match made in heaven, because there's just great stuff happening on that end, and a lot of that heavy lifting that those visual effects also do throughout the film when we're with Caesar and those apes. That's when it is actually fairly interesting. Usually the kind of person that kind of is just is turned off by that sort of stuff, by tons of visuals or tons of like certain VFX work. But for this instance, a lot of the um, point of watching Rise of the Planet of the Apes, or for any of these movies, is to follow such characters, to follow the title characters, the apes, and you're you're for the time that they are on screen, you're just completely intrigued, not by just a narrative point of view, but also by just aesthetic, by just what is happening in the frame, the details. It's it's quite remarkable. Um, and there are some things here and there, narratively speaking, on the human side that is interesting, um, but it might seem a bit of a cliche to say when it comes to saying that the spectacles or the visual effects are strong, but the human component not so much. But it is sort of the fault of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, is that the human side of things isn't as interesting as the VFX are, because when those VFX are present, it's just very involving and very interesting. Again, just how Caesar is crafted as a character is just very compelling. Um, and when he is not there, you're left with James Franco and company, and that company is okay. It's mostly forgettable, because there's not much of a remarkable quality that's being brought there. Um, they're just kind of there, in service to Caesar, to give him more development, to give him more of a perspective, to have him be the middle ground between understanding humans and understanding apes, um, and not just shielding him or being one thing. They're just providing him a bridge, basically. It's in service to another character, not necessarily to where those characters have some sort of distinction, you know. Um, so it's not there's not much to those characters as much as there is to Caesar, but um, but there is still involvement, in just how the narrative flows. I mean, it's typical, but it flows rather, um, interestingly. Again, led by those aesthetics, led by those visual effects, led by what Andy Serkis is doing in performance. There is something of an intrigue. There is something of an involvement to be had. But it's just to say that is the sphere where this film is ultimately interesting. When it jumps out of that sphere, it's it's not as involving. It's not as interesting. Um, there is an emotional center to the film, between James Franco and Andy Serkis, but again, it leans more towards of what Andy Serkis himself is providing, and the strength of that performance, and the strength of what Weta Digital is ultimately bringing, as a whole. So between the three, obviously it's the weak component, because there isn't a a human element that matches well to the aesthetics. It's a case of where aesthetics win out over um, over um, over over any human involvement or real narrative interest. There's narrative interest mainly by just what you're seeing. Not much with what is being said. It's more about what is being shown, and led by that, primarily. So, and with that, you get a film that is fine. It's good. It's not throwaway. Like I said, what you have there being leading you and keeping you interested is really good. Again, those visual effects, Andy Serkis, what he is doing, the actual showing of these apes, like having like just the framing of these apes, and just again a lot of the nonverbal sort of approach to developing these pieces of VFX. It's interesting, but it's just when you get back to like James Franco and company is when things sort of just feel a little deflated, and not feel as important or not feel as interesting. Um, but because of those effects being there, and again, to an extent, narratively, what is just literally being told to you is interesting enough. You get a film that is just good, not great, not amazing, not solid, but not terrible and not forgettable. It's just good. It's good. There's some level of resonance. Some level of interest. There's some level of intrigue. Um, like I feel some of the emotion, especially coming from the score done by Patrick Doyle. Um, because that's another component that I really like about these movies is a lot to do with the music. Music is kind of a big factor to all these movies, just in developing a lot of the emotional centers towards the human character and piece of aesthetic, piece of VFX. Um, but of the three films, definitely the weak link. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts on Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I like it, but like a I'm not huge on it compared to what will follow next in this trilogy and what ultimately makes this trilogy really, really good. But as the start, as the foundation, good, but not great. So, um, but those are my thoughts on Rise of the Planet of the Apes. You guys let me know your thoughts on Rise of the Planet of the Apes if you guys have seen it, and of course the trilogy of the Planet of the Apes films. We're gonna go through all of them. I don't know if they'll be Film of the Week or Blind Tuesdays. We'll see where they fall. But let me know all your thoughts. Everything Planet of the Apes. Sorry, just brain fart. Your anticipation for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.